Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, and I'm going to be your instructor for this semester, fall 2026, for COMM 205 Motion Picture Appreciation, or it might be Appreciation of the Motion Picture or Appreciation of Moving Images. I'm not really sure. It all means about the same thing. And I'm guessing that when you registered for this class, you already had a pretty good idea about what the class is about. And you're probably correct about that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time about, what we're going to be covering exactly. This is going to be more about an introduction to the policies and how things are going to be graded and stuff like that. So in lieu of syllabus day, I'm having you watch this video. And part of the reason I do that, by the way, is because over the years, it really started to annoy me about how some people would show up, would go through the syllabus, and then somebody would be like, "Oh, I couldn't make it on the first day. Did I miss anything?" Or maybe somebody adds the class later, and I was like, "You know what? I have an idea. It's a motion picture class. Why don't I make a motion picture for syllabus day? And that way, no matter when you add the course, you can always watch this video. And also, n none of us have to show up. We can also watch it later in the semester if that's what's needed. So that's the whole point. All right, so let's get started. Let me just give you a quick introduction to who I am so that you know I'm qualified to teach this class. Although, to be fair, even if you think I'm not qualified, this is what's happening. Um, I am a professor of communication studies. Technically, what I do is I research media psychology. So I'm trained as a psychologist and I study people's psychological responses to different media messages. And I got into that because as an undergraduate, I was a film minor. So I was studying film and then I was also studying communication. And it was sort of like the marriage of these two things that really got me into all the stuff that I do right now, which is, this area of research, which I can talk to you at some other time if you're interested in. I also happen to really, really like movies and television, especially TV. I watch a lot of TV. I'm more into sort of like gritty, which is a good thing for you to know for this class. I'm more into like sort of gritty drama, that kind of stuff than I am and compared to things like reality television and stuff like that. My husband's more of the person who does that stuff. Um, but because I like watching that stuff, because I like stories, that's another reason I really love teaching this class. And I've been here at WVU since 2012. And most of the time, even though I do a lot of work for WVU, I am at home. I love working from home. That's where I am right now. I have a lot of animals at home that I like spending time with. I have a cat and lots of chickens, and then I have a dog, a large Pyrenees that looks over the chickens, and then I have two pugs that really just don't do anything with chickens. They just hang out with my lap. And I have a husband who also works from home, and we have a really nice place. So, one thing you should know is that most of the time, if I don't actually have to teach or I don't have office hours, there's a good chance that I will be working from home. That's where I do my writing and stuff. But I really don't want you to feel discouraged from reaching out and trying to get in touch with me because, first of all, I can always come to campus. I don't live that far away. We could set up a time to talk in person if you can't meet my office hours, which right now I'm doing this Tuesday, Wednesday thing, but I always say don't read too much into the office hours because I don't know what are the odds that we all have schedules that work out. I'm big on appointments, so please make an appointment, even if it's during office hours. That way you don't have to worry about, having to wait for somebody else to get out of my office or whatever. But we could also meet on Zoom or talk on the phone or figure out the best way to communicate um, based on whatever you want to talk about. I don't like pop-ins so much. I mean, if you come in office hours, I can't stop you. But if you want to talk, what would be cool is if you just send me an email and then are just like, hey, Dr. E, I would really like to talk about X. Do you have some time? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. Let's figure out something. We can usually work out something, I don't know, like in 48 hours. So just that's how you get in touch with me. Okay, so now let's just talk about what you need for this course. I've got some really good news for you. There is a book for this course, but it is open source. So what that means is it's online, it's free. You don't have to buy any book for this class. I have links at the back of your syllabus, like where the schedule is, where you can click to go to different chapters that are associated with the content that I'm going to be covering each week. But here's some more good news. Well, depending on how much you like to read, I guess. If you love to read, maybe it's not good news, but um, Technically, you don't have to even read the textbook to succeed in this class. The way that this class is set up is basically showing up is, I'm not even going to say half the battle. It is like probably more than half of the battle. If you just show up and listen to my lectures where I'm going to be talking about stuff in the book and you do these little, I call them quizzes, but I don't know if that's the best word for it, quizzes each week, you have all of the information that you need from the lecture. So there's never going to be a reason that you need to like go and like look something up in your book unless you're just really interested in it. Or we do have writing assignments, which I'll talk about in a second, and maybe your book could help you a little bit with that. But again, it's something you need to buy. It's available online, so you don't need to do anything. Um, there occasionally, I should mention, I have a couple of supplemental readings which have informed my lectures, so I'll put those on eCampus too. But the bottom line is everything you need is on eCampus, so that's what you need. Okay, so now let's just talk about like how do you get a grade in this class? How do you get a good grade in this class? Well, here is the part of your syllabus, which I should have mentioned at the beginning. If you want to see your syllabus, obviously go get it on eCampus. It's there. If I ever have any updates, I'm gonna update it and then repost it to eCampus, but I'll let you know. So okay, here's the basic rundown. As I just mentioned, most of this class is going to be based on these, quizzes. These quizzes are not like pop quizzes. It's not like you have to like study something and then come to class and then like hope that you know the answer. I call them quizzes because I want you to know it is possible to get wrong answers on these things. But basically, every night you come into class, there's going to be a paper quiz that has usually about 10 questions on it. Hence, they're worth 10 points each. And you need to have a writing utensil. And I'm going to go through a little bit of a lecture. And then a lot of times we'll be viewing things. So maybe I'll be having you watch YouTube videos about film, or maybe we'll be watching a film. And as I'm going through all that stuff, it's your job to listen or look and pay attention. And then fill in the answers as we go. So the questions could be true or false. They could be fill in the blank. They could be multiple choice. They could be short answer, whatever. But the goal is to make sure that you attend class and that you pay attention. This is to kind of incentivize that. And so, like I said, I'm not saying that it's going to be always completely easy to get 10 out of 10 points, but if you pay pretty good attention, you should be able to get like probably 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 with relatively little effort every single week. And one thing I want to point out about this is you'll see I'm counting 10 of these quizzes in your final grade. So 100 points of your final grade, so that's half, is coming from these quizzes. But if you look at the schedule, you'll see that we have more classes than 10 scheduled. And I'm going to give a quiz for every time that we have, some sort of content. In fact, after I finish talking about the syllabus, I'm going to give you your first lecture. Your first quiz is posted online, so it's a little bit different than what we're normally going to do, but you'll get your first quiz points, and that's going to be, then you'll only have 9 more that you need to do in order to get up to the 10 that you need. But the reason this is really important is because it means that if you miss class, okay, no big deal. You just do come to another class. There's going to be probably about 13 classes in total, maybe only 12. If I have to cancel class for any reason, like unexpectedly, then only 12. But 12 to 13 quizzes I'm going to give you throughout the semester. So if you miss one, you'll just do another one. Or if you don't like a grade that you got on one quiz, then just do another one. Or if you have to miss class, that means you can miss up to 3 classes all semester and it wouldn't even affect this quiz grade. And if you miss 4, it'll affect 1 quiz grade. So hopefully you're starting to see that, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility, but one really important thing I want to point out is, every semester, for very good reason, I have a lot of students that are doing wonderful things. They are going to competitions, maybe sports competitions, or they are in some sort of like mathalon. I don't know. But y'all are doing really cool stuff. Maybe there's military reasons that people can't come to class. There are university sanctioned absences. There are emergencies. There are things that have nothing to do with competitions. There are things that happen to us because we get sick and we don't want people coming to class if they're sick. Maybe, God forbid, you have a loss in your family, something like that. There's all sorts of reasons that people can't come to class. I don't mean to sound callous when I say this, but I don't really care. If you don't can't come to class, that's okay. The way I've structured this class, the reason that I'm only counting 10 out of 13, oops, 10 out of, well, this is kind of going into the attendance policy right now, but the reason I'm only counting 10 out of 13 of these quizzes is so that anybody can miss class for any reason and not have to worry about it. Okay. I'll come back to that as you can see on the next slide, but let me just go through these other things. The other things that you're going to have to do in this class, well, one thing that you're going to have to do this week is a syllabus quiz. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Another thing is this writing about film assessment. I basically sort of assess the learning outcomes in this class, and this is just sort of an effort thing. You don't have to be a good writer, or it doesn't matter if you're a bad writer. There's a survey posted on eCampus that you need to do before the end of the first week. It's worth 5 points. Do that. And then at the end of the class, you'll see there's another one that's posted. Do that. And that's at at the whole end of the semester. So that's part of your grade two. And then finally, I would say these like larger assignments, there are writing assignments in this class, but they're pretty informal. And once again, I'm offering more assignments than you actually have to do. So throughout the semester, there's going to be 3 opportunities to do like this writing post, and it's fairly short. It's not like a long essay or anything like that. It's more like several paragraphs, right? It's a show and tell. You're going to have to find an example of a scene that you want to write about, and you're going to have to apply a bunch of things that we talk about in class, and maybe some things that you research on your own, not like research in the library, but we'll talk about it later. If you're interested in the specific instructions, you can find those right now. But what I want you to understand right now is 3 times in the semester, I'm going to collect these. You're going to post them online, these little writing assignments, but I'm only going to count 2 of those grades for your final grade, which means that if you do the first 2 and you like your grade, you don't have to do the third one. It also means that if you don't like your grade on one of them, you can always try it again and replace it. Okay. So again, there's a little bit of flexibility here if, you know, I don't know, you're just not feeling doing 3 writing assignments, which is great because then I have to grade less. So it's all good. So that's your grade. You've got quizzes, which you need to show up. They're kind of attendance based. You have to come to class to do the quizzes. Okay. Which, by the way, another thing I want to mention about those, if you leave class early, that's no big deal. I'm not going to shame you, but you're not going to get full credit. Like, even if you have all the answers on there, that's not how we're doing this. Part of this is I just want butts and seats. I want to kind of force you to come to the movie class to watch movies. It's not that hard. If you can just get over the hump of actually being there, I promise it's going to be maybe not the best time, but it's going to be an okay time. So that's what those quizzes are sort of there to get you to do. So if you stay for a certain amount of the class, you'll get a certain amount of points. Okay. And that's half your grade right there. But most of the other points you can see come from these 2 writing assignments, and then miscellaneous things like the syllabus quiz and the survey that you got to do this week. Okay. So just to put a fine point on it, right? There is no attendance policy per se in this class. I'm not taking attendance. I'm not like roll call, and like here, we're not going to do that for 200 people. There are 200 people registered for this class. But I will take these quizzes. And these quizzes sort of act as attendance, but you also get a grade. It doesn't mean that you automatically get 10 points, although most people, like I said, do pretty well on these. And if you stay for part of the class and you need to leave early, then you just turn it in early and then you get part of the points. Okay. So that's how it's going to go. And like I said, there's no such thing as excused absence. There's not even such a thing as university sanctioned absence because all absences are created equal. If you know that you're going to have to miss class for some good reason or a bad reason. It could be a bad reason. You just need to plan ahead, right? You want to make sure that you save your, I'm going to say freebie days when you don't get quiz points for those events. Okay. If you've got some volleyball tournament coming up or, that there's a wedding in your family planned or something. Okay. Just make sure that you don't use up those days when or you don't, you're going to get you might get a zero in the grade book, but just know that that zero is going to be dropped, and it really has no bearing on why you miss class. I don't need to know. You don't need to let me know. Things happen. It's all good. Everything's equal, even Steven. Okay. Okay. And this is another, so actually this is has changed a little bit. In the past, eCampus did not have the ability to understand how I'm dropping all of these miscellaneous quiz grades and stuff. Now it does, but I haven't tried it yet. So this semester is going to be kind of the guinea pig semester. eCampus right now understands that it's only going to take your 10 highest quiz grades. So it means that let's say you miss class and you get a zero in the grade book. It it isn't a real zero technically. And eCampus knows that it's only going to take the highest grades. So it's going to sort of like calculate it based on that. It still might be a little bit wonky though, especially until you get up to the point where you've had lots of quizzes. I got to be really honest, I don't know quite what it's going to look like on your end. So I'm still going to go with this caveat. If you want to know what your grade is in this class, your best bet is not just to like rely blindly on eCampus. It's something that you want to calculate on your own. And I will post a little video about how I calculate your grades so that you can do it on your own if you need to as well. But this is my cautionary tale. Like, just don't trust eCampus no matter what it says. If you're worried about your grade or you're curious about your grade, it's better to just kind of figure it out on your own. Um, and then finally, the only other thing I want to kind of just say, like as a courtesy, is that we are gonna, I believe in trigger warnings as far as just so you understand what it means to me. A trigger warning is not something that says that people can not watch content. If I've assigned content for us to look at in class, it's because I think it's important. But a lot of the stuff we watch in this class is going to have disturbing elements to it. And depending on everybody's life experience, like what's disturbing to you might not be disturbing to someone else, but you just never really sort of know based on somebody's experiences what's going to be like triggering to them. So I'm going to try my best to let you know ahead of time if there are things that I think like, hey, just so you know, we're going to watch this and there's going to be some death, or there's going to be a suicide, or there's going to be like I'll try to do things like that. Again, not with the idea that it's like you should be worried or that you don't have to do it, just to kind of give you a heads up so that you can prepare yourself. And honestly, we're in this large lecture room. If you haven't seen it, like it's like the big one in Ming and um you can come and go as you please. We're like in college. So if you got to go to the bathroom or if you're grossed out by something that we watch or whatever, just get up and leave. Like it's not a big deal. You take care of yourself, but I'll do my best of just trying to give you warnings. That said, as I mentioned before, I'll just, I had a student years ago who said she liked pretty television. And I was like, oh, that is not what I like. I tend to like grittier things. A lot of the stuff that we watch will have different elements of violence in it. And we're going to watch different types of things. And don't get me wrong, not all of it. Some of this stuff is not going to be violent at all, but we are going to start off with one of the most classic horror movies ever made. But we'll talk about that. It's not the type of horror, it's not like horror for the sake of horror, right? It's not like that. It's psychological horror. So it's just bear with me. But the point is, this a lot of the content we watch is not going to be like really, it's not going to be all rainbow and My Little Ponies and unicorns. So I do want you to be aware of that. But I also want you to trust me to the point that I've taught this class quite a bit, and overall, students seem to really like the content in this class. So don't be too concerned, but also just be aware that, there's going to be things like violence and sex and lots of language, that kind of stuff. Okay, so now I'm just going to move. We've got all the stuff I think you need to take your syllabus quiz. Go ahead and do that. And consider now this like our first lecture. So this is the stuff that you can use to take your first content quiz to get you your first, hopefully 10 points out of, that you need out of that 100 points from the pile of quiz grades that you need. So, okay. As I already mentioned, you probably know what this class is all about. It's about movies. Whether you call it motion pictures or moving images, yeah, it's kind of synonymous with film, cinema, those types of things. Um, I do want to point out, though, that, technically a moving image can be anything. It's also the TikTok videos you're watching. It's also the video games that you're playing. And all of this stuff does dovetail with this class. I originally, when I started teaching this class, wanted to have a full unit on games. I wanted to have a full unit on moving images and social media, all this stuff. There's just not enough time. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because even if you don't have like a really specific interest in, cinema, I do think that the stuff that you're going to learn in this class in terms of techniques and narrative structure and things like that will apply to a lot of the other types of motion pictures that you are exposed to. But like I said, because of time limitations and there's just so much, we're mostly going to be talking about film in this class. And then at the end, I kind of get into some specific issues in TV. Um, Especially the first part of class, but really this class is structured to, I want you to think about the things that you see when you watch movies and TV as sort of a language, like in the same way that there's a verbal language that you can understand what I'm saying, because most of you know English, right? You get like the syntax and vocabulary and everything there's a visual language to cinema that not just helps us understand like what's going on, although that's part of it. It also affects how we feel and how we process different types of things. And that's really what I want you to get into when you have your writing assignments, right? We're going to be talking a lot about like how specific techniques translate to specific types of emotional response. And then I'm going to ask you to go in and kind of like figure out what the language is of the scenes and movies that you really enjoy on your own. Um, we One of the things I think I'll just point this out now because I do I romanticize this a lot is the cool thing about it is it's not like you're born knowing the cinematic language, right? It's not like, you come out as an infant and somebody shows you, like a Sesame Street episode or something and you know what's going on. It's it's a learned language. You learn it just like you could learn Spanish or English or French or Italian, or I don't know why I'm being so Eurocentric with this, but the idea is the reason you even know this language and that we can have a class where I don't have to like introduce you to like, hey, look at these pictures. Like if you flip the book, they move, right? It Because you've already been watching these things your entire life. So you do already have an ear or really an eye for this language. So what this class is about is helping you appreciate what are the things that actually create that meaning that you already know. So in that way, we're kind of like reverse engineering it. Um, Cinema, it taps into all these things. So since this is an appreciation class, we're going to cover it from lots of different angles. Like I could just teach like a class that's just about how cinema is this historical document. Now the first lecture that I do in person with you is going to have a lot of history because I just want you to like sort of like understand like why it was a big deal and how we kind of got to where we are and the different historical trends in cinema, but also how our how history, and we are going to focus mostly on American history, surprise, surprise, how American history shaped the institution of cinema. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about that because the you can appreciate the films we watch as something that it's like they are historical landmarks in themselves, right? It's a historical document. The other thing that I really like talking about a lot, and I'll keep threading this through all of the lectures too this semester, is cinema is a technology, and the technology that you know that film has been built on keeps changing. And then when the technology changes, what we're going to see is how the stories will often change. A point that I bring up a lot is how it's no coincidence, for instance, that we have a bunch of like the popularity of fantasy and comic book movies has risen in the past 2 decades. It's not because obviously like comic book stories have been pretty popular ever since we had comic books, right? But we didn't really have the technology to put them on the big screen like we do now. So now all of a sudden we're able to support those stories with the technology. So the technology has actually affected what sort of stories that we get engaged with. And I think that's really interesting. Um, and then finally, we'll talk a lot about cinema as just an art form. I mentioned we're going to be watching The Shining. Well, I didn't say The Shining. We're going to be watching this psychological horror film, and like I just got to tell you, like even if you think like you hate horror, I my experience has been, yeah, I get that, but when we talk about it as art, when we talk about the artistic elements and how really unbelievably complicated and artistic Stanley Kubrick was when he was making this film, even if you're just like not into that genre, you can appreciate it on this level of like, whoa, that is pretty mind-blowing that he was able to do that. And there are different types of artistic levels you can appreciate it on too. So those are kind of the three different realms, if you will, of cinema that we're going to get into. Um, Okay, and I think, let me see, yeah, finally. And then finally, the last thing I just wanted to sort of point out is this film is, sorry, this class is called Film Appreciation or whatever, Moving Image Appreciation. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like, what does it mean to appreciate something? And I think this is a question in your quiz where you literally have to like say it in your own words. So think about how you want to word it. Um, this is different than enjoyment. So this is not like, oh, I'm gonna have a good time, right? This is kind of like, not to say that like you can't enjoy something and sort of have this hedonic enjoyment of something and appreciate it. They are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. But appreciation is really sort of like the ability to recognize the different elements that make something up or understand the important role that, these films play, or just admire all the effort or artistic vision that went into these films. That's appreciation. And, back to this horror film thing, that's why it's sort of like, yeah, maybe you never want to see it again, and maybe it's not your cup of tea. It's, but can you still appreciate it? Like that's what we're really going for right now. Again, I try to choose films because the way it's going to work is we're going to watch a few films and they're going to sort of operate as case studies for all the things that we talk about, and we will watch them in class. You're not going to have to go out of class to watch it, although if you want to watch them on your own, I have them on course reserves. But the idea is we're going to watch them together, and then we're going to sort of like talk about them in a way that allows you to appreciate them, regardless of whether you like them or not. But I did try to pick films that historically students have enjoyed as well. So that's just like a separate, hopefully, bonus. But as you're thinking about appreciation for your own writing assignments, I do want to point out you're not, this isn't like a review. This isn't like I give it 4 thumbs up type of like, yeah, that was awesome, right? What I'm looking for is some sort of more holistic perspective on what makes the film um, admirable for, one of these things that we just talked as it in a historical context, technological, or as a form of art. So yeah. I have this little this was from one of my teaching evaluations a couple years ago, and somebody was like, yeah, the class was fine. Some of the stuff was great that we learned, and I liked this. This was an awesome movie. But the movie adaptation we watched in the Sesame Street documentary, which by the way, I don't even show anymore, was actually the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, I think it's a little hyperbolic, and I don't think that's really accurate, or that most people feel that way. But I'm also here to say, if you do feel that way, I am sorry. I don't care, because I think that that person probably did not enjoy it, but hopefully they could appreciate it. Maybe that's pie in the sky. Okay, so that's it. You have successfully gotten through your first week. You've gotten through the syllabus um, day plus our first lecture. What you need to do now is you need to go take your syllabus quiz. That is on eCampus. You can get your syllabus and you can have it open and take the quiz as many times as you need and so you can get all the credit. There's no reason not to get all the answers right. It'll take your last highest grade. The next thing you need to do, as I mentioned before, is you've got to do this short writing about film assignment. It's called, and actually, I'm sorry, I should have said it's the assessment survey. That's what I have labeled it this semester. In order to do this, though, you do have some homework. You need to actually watch something. It's not a movie, but it's an episode of a TV show that it's a bottle episode, so it's like a movie. You don't need to have seen any other episodes in order to understand what's going on. Consider it a short movie. It's about an hour long. There's a show called Black Mirror, and I'm going to have you watch episode 1 of season 3. If you have Netflix, you can get it on your Netflix account. Otherwise, it's on e-reserve. So after you take your syllabus quiz, the next thing you need to do, watch that episode. As soon as you're done watching that episode, you can take that assessment survey. The assessment survey is just going to have you write about that episode. And again, it's not the type of thing that there's going to be right or wrong answers. It's going to be kind of based on the effort that you put into it. So go ahead and watch that. And at some point, maybe you want to do this right after your syllabus quiz. That would make sense too. Sorry, this isn't linear. You need to take your weekly content quiz to get the 10 points from that. So those are all the things you need to do before we actually meet in person in the large lecture room on the second Wednesday of the semester, which is going to be August 26th at 4 p.m. And I really actually think that covers it. And if you missed something, you can now just go back and rewatch it, which would make me feel bad for you. But I'm looking forward to this semester, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in about 1 week. I will see you on August 26th. Okay, bye.